Good morning. Let's start the daily current affair discussion. The first topic is India and Egypt because recently the Indian Prime Minister is on a official visit to Egypt. This year, the Egyptian President was the chief guest at India's Republic Day parade, and he has invited Indian Prime Minister to visit Egypt. And keeping his request, the invitation, okay, the Prime Minister has visited Egypt and what are the major outcomes of the visit we'll discuss. Recently, Prime Minister Modi embarked on a two-nation tour, including a state visit to Egypt. So after USA, he visited Egypt. For the Indonesian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, this visit marked PM Modi's first visit to Egypt as Prime Minister and the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 26 years. Last in 1997, Indian Prime Minister visited Egypt. The government visit bestowed the highest honor of the land, Order of the Nile, on the Indian Prime Minister. The power prize of highest award of Egypt, the Order of the Nile. Nile is a famous river in Egypt. It was conferred on the Indian Prime Minister during the state visit. Highlight of the visit: strategic partnership agreement. The visit marked the signing of a strategic partnership agreement between India and Egypt, which is a significant milestone in the bilateral relationship between the two countries. The strategic partnership will have few elements: political, defense and security, economic engagement, scientific and academic okay, scientific and academic collaboration, cultural and people-to-people contact. So these are the domain which were highlighted during the visit of the Indian Prime Minister to Egypt. It's political, defense and security, economic engagement, scientific and academic collaboration, cultural and people-to-people contact. Memorandum of Understanding: three MOU were signed between India and Egypt in the field of agriculture, archaeology, and antiquities. The competition law aiming to enhance cooperation in these areas. Bilateral discussion: Indian Prime Minister and Egypt's President discussed various topics, including multilateral cooperation at the G20, food and energy security, climate change, and clean energy collaboration. India unit in Egyptian cabinet. Indian Prime Minister met the India unit, a group of high-level ministers constituted by the Egyptian President in Egypt cabinet, March 2023, to enhance India-Egypt relationship. So this is a very significant development. The Egyptian President has constituted an India unit in his own cabinet to strengthen bilateral relationship with India. And the Prime Minister during the visit interacted with the group of high-level ministers called the India Unit in Egyptian cabinet. The Commonwealth War Grave Cemetery. Prime Minister paid homage to the 4,300 Indian soldiers who lost their lives in Egypt and Aden during the World War One at the Heliopolis Commonwealth War Grave Cemetery. Because although India was in British rule, but the Britishers utilized Indian soldiers in the World War One, and 4,300 Indian soldiers sacrificed their life in the First World War. And at the Commonwealth War Graves Cemetery in Egypt, the Prime Minister paid homage to the 4,300 Indian soldiers who lost their lives in Egypt and Aden during the World War One. Egypt's participation in G20 summit. Egypt was designated as a guest country at the upcoming G20 summit, scheduled to be held in September by India, because this 2023 G20 summit will be hosted by India, and the host country has the right to invite guest country out of its own choice, and Egypt has been invited as a guest to, although it's not a member of G20, but India has invited Egypt to be a guest at the G20 summit, scheduled to be held in September, further strengthening bilateral ties between India and Egypt. So India has invited Egypt to be a guest. Al-Hakim Mosque. Indian Prime Minister visited the 11th century Al-Hakim Mosque in Cairo, Egypt, which was restored by India's Dawoodi Bohra community. Okay, the Dawoodi Bohra community is an Indian community. So, and the mosque was built in 1012, and it is the fourth oldest mosque in Cairo. The Dawoodi Bohra Muslims are known for their adherence to the Hatimi Ismaili Tayabi School of Thought and originated from Egypt because establishing a presence in India in the 11th century. Order of the Nile honors. Prime Minister Modi was honored with the Order of the Nile, Egypt's highest state honor, by President Al-Sisi. This gesture reflected the warmth and affection Egypt holds for India and its people. People-to-people exchanges. Modi met with Tarek Hegi, a renowned Egyptian author and petroleum strategist, to discuss various issues including radicalism and gender equality. These engagements aim to foster vibrant people-to-people exchange and deepen the ties between India and Egypt. So this is what. So during the visit, the major outcomes of the Indian Prime Minister visit. So Egypt is the focus country of India, and India want to develop relationship. So equally, Egypt is keen to develop its relation with India. And in this background, both the country meet and discuss a number of important issues. Future prospects. Egypt's status as a guest country at the upcoming G20 summit in India indicated growing collaboration and close ties between the two nations. The visit paved the way for enhanced cooperation on economic, political, and cultural fronts, with potential for increased trade and mutual benefits. Significance of India-Egypt relations. The history of contact between Egypt and India, two of the world's oldest civilizations, can be traced back to at least one time of emperor at the time of Emperor Ashoka. Ashoka's edict referred to his relation with Egypt under the Ptolemy II. In modern times, Mahatma Gandhi and the Egyptian revolutionary Syed Jagoul share the common goal of independence from British colonial rule. The joint announcement of establishment of the diplomatic relations at ambassador level was made on 18th August 1947 once India became independent, established relations with Egypt. So Egypt is one of the few countries with whom India established relationship immediately on becoming independent. So on 18th August, so India decided to establish diplomatic relationship with Egypt. So India and Egypt signed a friendship treaty in 1955, and in 1961, India and Egypt along with Yugoslavia, Indonesia and Ghana established the non-alignment movement. In 2016, the joint statement between India and Egypt identified political security cooperation, economic engagement, and scientific collaboration, and cultural and people-to-people tie as the basis for a new partnership for new era. In the bilateral trade, India's trade with Egypt stood at USD 6061 million in 2023, 22-23, having declined by 17% over this previous year. Nearly third of its was petroleum related. India was Egypt's sixth largest trading partner, while Egypt was India's 38th in 22-23. Indian investment in Egypt have spread over 50 projects totaling USD 3.15 billion, and Egypt has invested about 37 million American dollar in India. So there is bilateral investment. India's investment in Egypt is spread over more than 50 projects, and the amount is more than 3.1 billion dollar. And Egypt has invested around 37 million US dollar in India. So defense cooperation, the two air forces collaborated on the development of fighter aircraft in 1960s, and Indian pilot trained their Egyptian counterpart from the 1960s until the mid 1980s. Both the Indian Air Force and the Egyptian Air Force fly the French Rafale fighter jets. Okay, recently India purchased the Rafale fighter jet from France, and Egypt also Egyptian pilot also fly the Rafale fighter jets. Okay, in 2022, a pact was signed between the two countries that has decided also to also participate in the exercise and coordinate in training. Okay, that means in defense domain, so both the country cooperate each other in further strengthening the defense cooperation, and this is marked by the events which are held at regular defense cooperation initiatives launched by both the countries. Okay, so the first joint special force exercise between the Indian Army and the Egyptian Army exercise Cyclone was completed in January 2023 at Jaisalmer, Rajasthan. Cultural lesson: the Maulana Azad Center for Indian Culture, established in Cairo in 1992. Okay, and the center has been promoting cultural cooperation between the two countries. Fine. And opportunities: combat religious extremism. India aims to combat religious extremism by supporting moderate countries in the region and promoting social reforms. India has identified it as a key player in the Gulf region since it's maintained a moderate stance on religion, enjoys strong relations with the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, which have made substantial investment in Egypt. Strategically located, Egypt holds a strategically significant position with the Suez Canal, through which 12% of the global trade passes. And as Egypt controls the Suez Canal, and India is a major importer of petroleums, and a substantial part of the global trade passes through the Suez Canal. So, this relationship, a strong relationship with Egypt, is in the interest of India. By enhancing bilateral relations with Egypt, India hopes to advance its goal in the region. So that is why India is keen to develop its relationship with Egypt. And that the major reason why India is becoming close with Egypt since the country became independent, and at present this relationship is being further strengthened to enhance the bilateral relationship. Uh, uh, what is it? Sorry, Home class. Just five ପିଲା ତିନିଟା ଅଛନ୍ତି only ହଁ ହଁ କାଲି ହଁ ତା ଝିଅ ଏଠି ପଢୁଛି ବା ମହାପୁର ମହାପୁର ତ ଆଉ ଜାଣ ମହାପୁର ଯୋଉ ଆସିଥିଲା ସିଏ କହିଲା ମୋ ଝିଅ ଏଠି ବସି ପଢୁଛି କହିଲା କହିଲା ମୋ ଝିଅ ବା ମତେ କହିଥିଲା ଯେ India has identified it as a key player in the Gulf region. It maintains a moderate stance on religion, enjoys strong relations with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which has made substantial investment in Egypt. Strategically located, Egypt holds a strategic significant position with the Suez Canal because Egypt controls the Suez Canal and a major of the global trade passes through the Suez Canal. So, close relationship with Egypt will facilitate India in its maritime trade. Indian investment, Egypt seek investment in infrastructure, metro projects in Cairo and Alexandria, a Suez Canal economic zone, a second channel of the Suez Canal, and a new administrative capital in a Cairo suburb. So that is where India can invest in the investment in the infrastructure creation, and there are so many Indian private investors who are willing to invest in Egypt in the infrastructure creation to further strengthen the relationship. Right? More than 50 Indian companies have invested more than 3.15 billion in Egypt. Similar socio-economic conditions. Egypt is a large country, population of 105 million and economy about 378 billion. It is politically stable and its socio-economic conditions are quite similar to India. Egypt's largest import are refined petroleum, wheat, world's largest importer of wheat, corn and pharmaceuticals, of all which India has the potential to supply. So because India is exporting petroleum right now, India is a major wheat exporter in the world, corn and pharmaceuticals, especially the generic medicine. India has its own edge over these sectors, and India can invest in all these, export all these things to Egypt. Infrastructure development, moreover, the Egyptian government has an ambitious infrastructure development agenda with 49 mega projects, including the construction of a new Cairo USD 58 billion and USD 25 billion nuclear power plant and USD 23 billion high speed rail network, or the metro train, on which India can help Egypt in all the domain. During 2015-2019, Egypt was the world's third largest arms importer. This present opportunity for India because right now Indian defense industry is growing and Make in India has made a big dent, a big addition to the Indian defense manufacturing, and these defense products will be exported to Egypt in large quantity, and India can find a better business prospect in Egypt. Challenges: economic crisis in Egypt. The huge financial commitment of the Egyptian economy have coincided with a static economy, pandemic, global slowdown, and the Ukraine conflict. Consequently, tourism has dropped and imports such as cereal have become costly. Annual inflation is above 30%, and the currency has lost more than half of its value since February 2022. So the biggest challenge is inflation. Inflation rate in Egypt is 30%. It is a big challenge for the government. The abysmal debt and forex, Egypt's foreign debt is over USD 163 billion, 43% of the GDP, and its net foreign asset are minus $24.1 billion. The acute forex situation compelled the government to issue in January 2023 an order for the postponement of the project with a large foreign currency component and cut to non-essential spendings. China's growing influence. India's concern regarding China in Egypt revolve around China's growing economic influence, its expanding presence in strategic area, its bilateral trade agreements, which can have potential implications for India's regional interest and security. China's bilateral trade with Egypt is currently at USD 15 billion, double that of India's USD 7.26 billion in 2021-22. Fine. During the past 8 years, the president of Egypt has traveled to China 7 times to allow the Chinese investment. So you see the importance of Egypt because the president of Egypt has traveled China. So because Egypt want China to be a good investor in Egypt, so he has visited China 7 times. Okay, to attract Chinese investment. So India find a prospect over here. So India can take the place of China in Egypt in investment. India need to carefully balance its exposure to Egypt with the opportunity on hand. India may countenance manageable eco-political risk to partake Egypt's lucrative opportunities through various innovations such as the EXIM line, export-import line of credit, barter, and the rupee trading. India should, however, avoid a repetition of its experience of Iraq in 1980s and 1990s of having to defer its hard-earned construction project dues until they had to eventually be paid off by the Indian taxpayer. Why? Because India invested in Iraq and they became all non-feasible projects. Moreover, such an arrangement may set a precedent. Other similarly less friendly countries may cite. Okay, India may instead consider trilateral funding arrangements such as project in Egypt to or elsewhere with the partners in the Gulf and G20 on the mutual. Okay, so on the mutual financial institutions. Okay, the next topic is a topic on polity, the Uniform Civil Code and India's multilateral challenges, balancing autonomy and unity. The Law Commission of India invites public view on Uniform Civil Code. What is the move? After a previous conclusion that the Uniform Civil Code is unnecessary and undesirable, the Law Commission of India has reopened the discussion by seeking public input on the matter. This move has reignited one of the India's most divisive and potentially charged issue, while acknowledging the potential benefit of implementing the Uniform Civil Code in a gradual manner. It is important to consider a crucial aspect of the Commission embark on this fresh undertaking. What is Uniform Civil Code? Uniform Civil Code refers to the creation of a single law for India that could apply to all religious communities in various areas, including marriage, divorce, inheritance, and adoption. This code is based on Article 44 of Indian Constitution, which state that the government should strive to establish a uniform civil code that is applicable to all citizens across the country. Okay, so civil code governs marriage, inheritance, divorce, adoption, succession, etc. And Article 44 of Indian Constitution provides for an uniform civil code, but it has not been implemented in the country since independence. And right now, the demand is growing to implement the uniform civil code in the country. So all civil matters will be applicable to all the citizens equally across the country, because right now different religious community have different personal law and civil codes, and that creates disunity. So to create uniformity or bring uniformity, the discussion or the demand for uniform civil code is there, and the BJP in its agenda has put uniform civil code as one of its election agenda, and to implement this article 44 in the DPSP need to be rectified to an act for its implementation. So autonomy versus authority. The debate surrounding personal law revolves around the clash between personal and religious autonomy versus the state's authority to reform familial relations. Proponents argue that each religious group should initiate reforms within their own community, promoting internal law reform or a voluntary adoption of the Uniform Civil Code. However, certain recent legislation, such as the Love Jihad law, contradicts the spirit of the Special Marriage Act. Okay, we have Marriage Act, we have Special Marriage Act, we have the personal law of different community, which is an example of voluntary uniform civil code adoption. Additionally, regional variations exist, such as Kerala's abolition of the Hindu joint family in 1975 and specific law governing Muslim marriages and divorce in different states. Religious identity and personal law. Presently, personal law govern not only Muslim but also Hindus, Jaina, Buddhist, Sikh, Parsis, and the Jews. The religious identity of an individual determines which personal law applies to them, because when the country became independent, so in the British period, personal law and criminal law are different. Civil law and criminal law are different for different communities, and the criminal law was made uniform for all the communities, same criminal law. But the civil law, so where the personal law were allowed civil law for different community. Even the reform Hindu personal law under the Hindu Marriage Act 1955 mandates specific marriage rituals and incorporates principle from ancient text like Manusmriti. Interestingly, when two Hindus marry under the Special Marriage Act, they remain governed by the Hindu personal law, while two Muslims marrying under the same religion are no longer governed by the Muslim personal law. Even a person who renounces Hinduism continue to be subject to Hindu personal law. Okay, this is the variation because the personal law vary to different communities, so that need to be made uniform. The constitutional framework, the Indian Constitution, as a culmination of India's integrative tradition, upholds cultural accommodation through provisions that prohibit discrimination and guarantee the prevention of distinctive culture in Article 29(1). However, it is essential to ask whether Indian Muslim can argue that practices like polygamy and arbitrary unilateral divorce, even in anger or while intoxicated, are genuinely part of the culture. Okay. Furthermore, it is crucial to strike a balance between preserving multicultural diversity and pursuing unity in a diverse and multicultural nation like India. The British colonial rule promoted homogeneity among Hindu and Muslim, neglecting the heterogeneity within these communities. So during the Muslim rule, that is because this is not properly done, so that things is continuing till date. Multiculturalism and accommodation of the differences. The Indian Constitution offers two approaches to accommodating differences: integrationist and restricted multiculturalism. While affirmed action policy aligned with the integrationist approach, state assistance to minority cultures is often seen as illegitimate concessions or appeasement. This leaves cultural differences without robust constitutional norms. Therefore, the focus should be on ensuring equality between men and women within the communities, rather than seeking equality between the communities. As just legal code that upholds equality and justice is more significant than a more uniform law. That is what. So, because we have a multicultural society and accommodation of differences are a must. What is multiculturalism? Multiculturalism is the way in which a society deals with cultural diversity both at the national and the community level. Sociologically, multiculturalism assumes that society as a whole benefits from increased diversity through the harmonious coexistence of different cultures. Multiculturalism typically develops according to one of the two theories of melting pot theory of the salad bowl theory. Melting pot means all melt become one, and salad bowl means all will be from different colors, different background. They will be put in one pot. Okay, that is multiculturalism. So India is a where this coexist. Multiculturalism can take place on a nationwide scale within a nation's communities. It may occur either naturally through immigration or artificially when jurisdictions of different cultures are combined through legislative decree. Okay, they can assimilate or they can combine their jurisdictions. Fine. Conclusion: in preserving India's multicultural diversity, it is essential to consider the limitation of personal law and practices. Cultural relativism cannot justify the continuation of unjust and discriminatory provisions. The Law Commission must navigate the path ahead with caution, ensuring that its recommendations do not fuel reactive culturalism among different communities, including the Muslims. The Muslim community should distinguish between Muslim personal law and Islam state, acknowledging the historical and juristic influence on the Muslim personal law. Progress can be made by reforming discriminatory aspects of the Muslim personal law and adopting the views of progressive jurists. Striking a fine balance between the preserving cultural practices and meeting constitutional standards will be crucial in the process of overhauling socio-religious cultural practices and embracing secularism. As political philosopher Irish Young suggests, the value of social differences is relational and shaped by social progress processes, making it imperative for the Commission to eliminate only those practices that contravenes constitutional benchmarks. Right. Then the skin bank. So recently, North India's first skin bank was inaugurated in the Delhi's Safdarjung Hospital. But the skin bank is a place where cadaveric skin is processed and preserved under optimal conditions, from where it can be used for the benefit of burn victims. Normally, the persons who are burn victims, they need skin for transplantation. Skin can be donated after death within 6 hours from the time of death. Anyone can donate skin irrespective of the sex and blood group, The minimum age of the donor should be 18 years. There is no upper age limit. Even a 100-year-old person can donate his skin and it will be used for treatment. The skin of persons suffering from AIDS, hepatitis B, C, sexually transmitted disease, skin cancer, active skin disease, and septicemia are considered unfit for donation. At the time of skin harvesting, a blood sample from the body of the deceased is also taken, and a necessary test for HIV, viral marker, and hepatitis is carried out at the skin bank. Then the skin is preserved for future use. And old history of trauma or old history of burns does not make the donor unfit for skin donation. Means those who suffer from burn injury earlier also can donate their skin. Skin is generally preserved in 85 glycerol solution. It is stored between 5 to 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, and it can be stored for a period up to 5 years. The country has 16 skin banks, a facility where the skin of deceased persons can be donated. The 7 in Maharashtra, 4 in Chennai, 3 in Karnataka, and 1 each in Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. So fortunately, Odisha has one skin bank, okay, and where skin can be donated and can be used for treatment of patients in future. The Indo-USA deal for the M1 MQ-9B drones. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden announced the mega deal on the purchase of General Atomic MQ-9 repair armed drones by India. The procurement process has commenced with the Defense Acquisition Council, chaired by the defense ministers of both the countries. So this is the specialty. Max gross take of weight is 5,670 kg. Fuel is capacity is 2,721 kg. Payload capacity 2177 kg across 9 hard option, 8 wings, 1 centimeters. Crew 2 pilots in ground control station. Weapons laser guided missiles, anti-tank missiles, anti-ship missiles. Mission humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, search and rescue, law enforcement, border enforcement, defensive counter-air, airborne early warning. The missions: electronic warfare, anti-surface warfare, anti-submarine warfare, airborne mine countermeasures, long-range strategic ICR, over the horizon targeting. So these are the different uses of the MQ M9B drones. About the MQ-9 repair armed drones with an endurance of over 27 hours, the General Atomic 9 MQ-9 repair speed of that 240 cats can operate up to 5,000 feet and has the 3850 pounds payload capacity. It can carry 500% more payload and has 9 times the horsepower in comparison to the earlier M1 Predator. It is designed to fly over the horizon via satellite up to 40 hours, depending on configuration and all types of weathers. The MQ-9B has two variants, the Sky Guardian and the Sea Guardian. The 15 Sea Guardian are for the Indian Navy, and the 16 Sky Guardians, 8 each for the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force, will be purchased by India from USA. The MQ-9 UAV provides long endurance, persistent surveillance, and strike capacity for the warfighters. It will be assembled in India, will enhance the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capability of Indian armed forces across the dominions. It will bolster India's national security and surveillance capability, not only in Indian Ocean but also along the frontiers of China. General Atomics will also establish a comprehensive global maintenance, repair, and overall facility in India in support of India's long-term goal to boost indigenous defense capability. Not only the India purchase it, but the company will also establish a repairing facility or overhauling facility in India, by which so India can use this facility for the repair and overhauling of this drone that India will purchase from USA. Fine. Then the Wagner Group in news recently. The Wagner Group waged an armed rebellion against Russia and vowed to topple the country's defense leadership. But this Wagner Group, it is a Russian paramilitary organization headed by Evgeny Prigozhin. Legally, it is not a Russian-based private military company, though it works closely with the Russian security apparatus. It is basically a private military company. So remember this. So this Wagner Group is a private military company and a network of mercenaries, those who fight for money. It was first identified in 2014 with the backing pro-Russian separatist forces in eastern Ukraine. It got registered as a company in 2022 and opened a new headquarters at St. Petersburg. According to report, the Wagner Group now consists of 50,000 fighters in Ukraine and has become a key component of the Ukraine campaign. Fine. And presence, the Wagner Group has been active in Sudan, Mali, Central African Republic, Mozambique, and Libya in Africa. The activity are related to providing direct support to authoritarian government, supporting rival leaders engaged in internal war, filling the void created by the withdrawal of the French military engagement, taking part in resource exploitation, etc. According to media report, it provides its services to different government, often in exchange for access to gold and diamond mines. Okay, so that which it owns, operates its business. Associated with Russia, the Wagner Group under the uh, Prigozhin has benefited Russia significantly in the ongoing war against Ukraine because these mercenaries, so they are the forefront of the Russian aggression on Ukraine. It was this mercenary group that captured the key regions of the Soledar and the Bamut for Russia from Ukraine. Because of the Wagner's military contribution, the Prigozhin enjoys some popularity and influence in Russia also, and is very close to the Russian president. But the discord with the Russian president, defense minister, and the general led this Wagner group head to uh, expressed his grievances and became anti-Russian and finally declared a civil war with the Russian authority, but with the intervention of the neighboring country. So right now this Wagner civil war has ended and they will take asylum, okay, in that neighboring country. Fine. So then the Valley certified malaria free by WHO, WHO, the World Health Organization, the health regulator of the world, congrats the people of the government of the village and their network of global and local partners for this achievement, said Dr. Tedros, the WHO Director General. Village is another example of how, with the right tool and the right approach, we can dream of malaria free, making a country malaria free. So this is the country, Mexico, Guatemala, and this is the Belize. Belize is a third country to be awarded the malaria-free status in 2023 following the certification of Azerbaijan and Tajikistan in March. It is located on the northeast coast of Central America and south of the Equus Peninsula. It is a land of mountains, swamps, and tropical jungle. It is bounded by Mexico to the north, Guatemala to the west and south, and the Caribbean Sea to the east. Geographical features: the southern half of this country is dominated by the rock Maya Mountains, a plateau of igneous rocks cut by erosion into hills and valleys that stretch in a southwesterly to northeasterly direction. The northern half of the country consists of limestones, lowlands, and swamps less than 200 feet above the sea level. Along the coast of this country, there is a Belize Barrier Reef, which is the second largest barrier reef in the world. The reef system, the reef reserve system was designed as UNESCO Heritage Site in 1996. Fine. So then come to the question: can goodness be learned? Discuss the eightfold path suggested by Buddha in this regard and explain its relevance in the contemporary time for ordinary citizens, leaders, and administrators. Godness means the act of being good in all the circumstances. It can be learned through education, training, and experience if one is amenable, open, and willing. A chaotic person may become organized, and unworthy may become trustworthy. A fragile and shaky fellow may become inspired and motivated. Goodness can be learned only if we are ready to remove the obstacle in the way by understanding followed by practices. There are many hindrances in acquiring goodness, such as a narrow vision, ignorance, and wrong assumptions, social conditioning and prejudices, lack of emotional balance and negative reaction, lack of self belief, motivation, and inspiration, etc. The eight Buddhist practices in the Noble Eightfold Path are right view. This means seeing things impartially, look at people and all creatures without any discrimination and prejudice against them. Relevance in contemporary times, the eight view will help in making an inclusive society as people will not discriminate against each other. Leaders and administrators will be consider for every section while making and implementing laws. Right resolve, Buddha meant by this giving up home and adopting the life of a religious mendicant in order to follow the path. In the practical life of a normal human being, this path would lead to selfless behavior, sacrifice of greed and ill will. Relevance in contemporary times, this path will make people, leaders and administrators, being compassionate and tolerant. It will boost public and political morality. Self-sacrifice will result in lesser corruption, which is one of the major issue of our system. Right speech, no lying, not telling the lie, no rude speech, no telling one person what another say about him, speaking that which leads to salvation. Relevance in contemporary times, inappropriate speech by leaders may cause conflict and violence. Social media is a living example where people speak without restraint, which causes differences. Then right conduct, no killing or injury, no taking, no talking what is not given, no material desire. Relevance in contemporary times, this will help in bringing stability and lesser crimes. People will not concentrate wealth and hoard material during distress. Leaders and administrators will become dutiful. Okay, right livelihood, beg to feed, only possessing what is essential to sustain life. Relevance in contemporary times, this will bring equality. People will become more spiritual instead of being materialistic. Administrator and leader will not build empire and scrum such as 2G scams, whole scam will not happen. Right efforts, guard against sensual thoughts. This concept aimed at preventing unwholesome status that without mediation. Relevance in contemporary times, this increasing brutal case of rape will find a solution under this principle. Then right mindfulness, never be absent-minded, being conscious of what one is doing. Relevance in contemporary times, this makes people more rational and accountable to leaders and administrators. The Right to Information Act is the culmination of rational thinking. Then right samadhi, so practice four stages of mediation culminating into unification of the mind. Relevance in contemporary times, this helps in focusing and removing ethical dilemmas while making decisions in personal and professional life. To keep one healthy physically and mentally, the eightfold paths are very useful by guiding people through thoughts and action. These attributes help in fulfilling the constitutional and social obligations. Fine. Then coming to the MCQs, recently Priya AS has been awarded the prestigious Kendra Sahitya Academy Bal Sahitya Puraskar 2023. Consider the following statement. Okay. For Nobel, the Perumuja Hatte Kunti Kular in the Malayalam language. This is the award given to him, so it is incorrect. The Nobel set against the backdrop of 1920 Kerala flood. Okay, so Bal Sahitya Puraskar is given every 2 years, so only two is correct, but rest are incorrect. Recently, the announcement was made by the World Health Organization regarding the Belize achievement in the successful reducing the elimination of malaria causes. Consider the following. Belize is a Central American country located on the northwest coast of Central America. That's incorrect. It says Badut, Mexico to the north and Guatemala to the west, right? The Belize Barrier Reef is UNESCO World Heritage Site. So, this is one. So, which so two statements are correct. Okay, only two are correct. Okay, here. Okay. So one is incorrect, but the rest, uh, so both one and two are correct. So recently, Wagner Group is in news. So it is a Russian paramilitary organization. So answer is C. Recently, North Indian first skin bank was inaugurated in Delhi Safdarjung Hospital. Skin can be donated after death within 6 hours from the time of death. That's right. Okay. So anyone can donate skin irrespective of the sex and blood group. The minimum age of the donor should be 18 years. So here 1 and 2 both are correct. On the occasion of the world's MSME Day, Minister of MSME is celebrating Udyami Bharat MSME Day, Vigyan Bhavan, New Delhi. So, United Nations designated June 27 as Micro, Small, Medium Industry Enterprise Day. That's right. The theme of MSME Day 2023 in India is Future Ready MSME for India at 100. So, both are correct. The recent purchase agreement of MQ-9 Ray for armed drone was signed between India and USA. The recent visit of the Prime Minister to America, this agreement was signed. Recently, the Odisha cabinet approved a 1,000 crore increase in total cost outlay for the augmentation of basic amenity and development of heritage and architecture scheme. So the aim is to transform basic infrastructure in Puri town. That's okay. Started in 2020, the central sponsored scheme. So only 1 and 2 are correct. Abada is a state government scheme. So consider the following statement: Assam's first ever underground tunnel connecting uh, uh, Nimbuligad and Gopur. It will be the first railroad tunnel under the Brahmaputra river in the northeast India. So both 1 and 2 are correct here. With reference to the Nandi portal, it will help in streamlining and regulatory approval process for veterinary products. That's right. Developed by the National Informatics Centers. So only one is correct. The reference to the Karchi Puja, it is one of the main festival of Tripura. That's during it is performed during January on the premise of the Chatudas Devta temple. So that's two. So only two is correct, but one is incorrect. So this way, so keep watching every day to update yourself on the development. Thank you for watching.